the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, and welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today, I am sitting down with an MSer from the state of New Jersey. She has had MS about 20 years, and she wanted to come on the podcast and share her journey to help me spread awareness about multiple sclerosis. Please welcome to the podcast, Jeanene. How you doing today, Jeanene?
Hey, Brian. How you doing? I'm doing just great.
Good. Jeanene, you were diagnosed with MS about 20 years ago. Can you kind of take us through your journey, how you got diagnosed, what kind of symptoms you were having, how old you were, and, what happened and what made you go see a doctor because something wasn't right with you?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I think my story is a lot like everyone else's in that all of a sudden I was having these symptoms that I couldn't explain and I brushed them off for as long as I could thinking, I don't have time for this until my right leg went numb. And I remember sitting in front of my boss and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with my leg. It's so freaking numb. He's like, oh, go to my chiropractor. So I went to the chiropractor who ended up sending me to a neurologist, and my leg just kept getting more and more numb. And they did the evoked potential test at the chiropractor and then sent me over to the neurologist where they did the basic test, the MRI, the blood test, the spinal tap, and I got my positive diagnosis. Now, the first symptom I would say is the leg because that was the weird one. But if I think about it, ever since middle school, I was getting these weird symptoms of lightning zaps in my stomach that would take me to my knees and take my breath away. But I never knew what they were. And when I would tell my mother or the doctor, they would both say, oh, that's weird, and move on. Like it was nothing. And I always felt like I was more tired than the average kid. Yeah. I remember someone said to me, do you ever just feel like going for a run? I just felt like going for a run. And I thought, that's not a real thing. Who feels like going for a run? Like I was just exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
So after I got the diagnosis, of course, I went right into denial. I'm like, I don't have this. I don't have to deal with it. I'm not even going to think about it. My leg eventually came back little by little. And I just kept going on with my life. I was in corporate America and just way too important and too busy to deal with any MS bullshit.
Yeah.
Until I couldn't ignore it anymore. And my arms, my legs, the brain fog, I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I went to the doctor and he said, well, you need to go on medication immediately. And I said, well, I still want to have more kids. And he said, well, you can on the medication. My God, it would kill the fetus. So you better hurry up and get pregnant. And I did, because at that age you could in your 20s. So after I had the second child, I was fine during pregnancy. Everything was good. And I went for my regularly scheduled checkup with the neurologist when my daughter was 3 months. And he said, Jeanene, your optic nerve is so inflamed and I can see that your MS is active. And if it moves even an inch, you will be blind and there's nothing we can do for you. He said, you need to go on the medication today. And it scared the shit out of me. So of course I did it. And, we did the 2 weeks of the steroids, tapered off of that. And then I started with the beta-serone because 20 years ago, that's all you had. Right. The Apnex, the beta-serone, the Copaxone.
Yep.
So I started with the beta-serone and I just continued to get worse and worse until my arms and my legs were completely paralyzed. I couldn't lift them. I couldn't move them. My husband was taking me to the bathroom. It was awful. And
Wow.
I thought, there's no way that this is my life. Like, there's got to be something I can do.
Yeah.
And I asked the neurologist, I said, what if I eat differently? Like, if I change my diet, would any of that make a difference? And I remember the look he gave me. He goes, Jeanene, nothing you eat will ever make your disease any better or worse. So go and do what you're going to do. Yeah.
A neurologist told you that a diet change wouldn't help or hurt. That's really strange.
Yeah.
Wow, because I mean, I've been diagnosed 27 years, Jeanene, and my neurologist said that diet back 27 years ago. He said that diet definitely could have triggers on inflammation. All that's just crazy how it's different from one neurologist. Yeah, that's just crazy. So how old were you? How old were you when you got diagnosed? You're in your 20s?
25, 26, 27. My son was 2. So I was 27.
So you were the same age as me, and I just know that feeling of when 27, you're full of piss and vinegar, and you think you're indestructible,
arrogant as hell, and I'm Sicilian and a Scorpio, so yep.
Yeah. I mean, when you did wrap your head around that diagnosis, I know at least for me when I did. And you did your research on it, because I didn't have any knowledge of MS when I got diagnosed. So I did my research on it, and the first thing in my head was, I'm screwed. I'm going to end up in a wheelchair.
That sentence. The only thing I knew was Annette Funicello. I remember, right? Remember her?
Yeah. Yep.
That was the only reference I had to MS, and seeing her in the wheelchair with her whole body shaking and her barely being able to talk, I thought that was my fate. That was it. And I didn't have any choices.
Yeah.
And then the neurologist confirmed that. You have no choices.
Yeah.
We don't know what's causing it, and there is no cure. And it was a dark time that I had to hide for a while because I had these kids. And my entire life, I wanted kids. Since the time I could remember, playing house at 5 years old, I wanted kids so badly. And then here I was, not having the ability to take care of them or just take care of my basic needs. It was awful. It was the darkest time of my life.
I couldn't even imagine that, Jeanene. I know I had kids when I got first diagnosed in 97. My first son was born in 99. And so I was 2 years into it. But I mean, that was a scary, scary part for me in my life because, like you said, Annette Funicello, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, I got a little baby here and I don't want to be in a wheelchair. So I kind of took an attitude, you know what? If it's going to take me down, I'm going to freaking fight this thing like a motherfucker. And I'm like
a motherfucker. Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to lock myself in a weight room, go, do as much as I can. And that's the way I attack this disease, and I was young and that's the way. And I think it's helped me so much 27 years later. I mean, I'm not as mobile as I used to be 27 years ago, but I can still walk. And I attribute that a lot to attacking it early in the disease and doing
and
exercise.
Not falling victim to it.
Yes. And, and there's going to be hurdles along the way. You're going to get knocked down, but you got to get back up and you got to dust yourself off and you got to keep on going because this disease will tear you up mentally.
If you let it. And I think that's what happened. I broke. I broke and something changed in me. My arms and my legs were completely unusable. And my then husband said, I'm going to go to 7-Eleven. I'll be right back. And there was my 2-year-old sitting on the blanket in front of me playing. I said, my God, don't leave me alone. And he said, Jeanene, she won't even know that I'm gone. Just don't worry. She won't move. So he wasn't even out of the driveway when that sweet little girl got up, I think to show me a toy. And she tripped on the area rug, hit her head on the coffee table and cried so hard, no sound came out. And there I was, shaking my body to get down off that chair to get to her. I made it onto the floor. And by that time she had made it over to me and wrapped her little arms around my neck and she's crying and I'm crying and it was a shit show.
Oh,
my husband walked back in the house He goes, what happened? And I go, that's it. I quit. I'm done. I can't do this. I cannot live with MS. There's no way God gave me these two beautiful children only to take away my ability to take care of them. I am done. And that was the moment that changed the trajectory of my entire life.
Yeah.
Something snapped in me, and I knew that I would find a way out of this hellhole or die trying.
Yeah.
And what that led me to was weeks later, I quit my job, which I loved my job. I was in corporate America. I was, a big wig at Jersey Mike's and thinking I was, hot shot. I had to quit because I thought if I don't quit, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I was already on disability at that point. So quitting was just the next logical step. But what I did was I looked for any type of information that said I could heal. And I couldn't find it until this one book written by these two ladies. One was in a wheelchair, one was bedridden. They both healed all of their symptoms, and they did it with food. And I had no idea that food had any connection to anything. And that was how I started on my journey, because I thought if they could do it, if someone did it, then I'm going to find a way to do it. And that book led me to one step, which led me to another book that led me to another step. And 20 years later, I'm now symptom-free, and I teach other people how to be symptom-free, because now there's a lot more information than there ever was out there. Now we know the root cause of all autoimmune diseases, and now we know what to do about it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Jeanene. So you're on your DMT and you're at the lowest point in your life. So when you decided to take control of it and turn it around, did you quit your DMT cold turkey? You just said, you know what? I'm done with the DMT. I'm just going to do this holistically, and I'm going to do it through nutrition. And this is the way I'm going to attack it. Or did you stay on the DMT and do it holistically? How did that go?
I'm going to answer that question, but before I do, I need to say a disclaimer. What I'm about to tell you is my experience, what I did, and I do not recommend it to anybody else. I do not recommend that you do what I did.
Sure.
I quit cold turkey. So when I quit my job, I quit the DMT. Yeah. And it was awful. I shouldn't have done that. What I experienced was what I would call liquid pain going through my head. And I don't know if it was from quitting cold turkey, but I do know that I should have tapered off. But I was so gung-ho and arrogant and that's it, I'm done, that I just quit that cold turkey. And I wish I didn't. But after doing in that book, it recommended starting with going gluten-free. And I didn't know why at the time, like I do now, but I went gluten-free. And within 2 weeks, I felt clarity in my eyes. My eyes would always cross. I was always dizzy, but dizzy in a way where I was moving, not the room was. My internal head felt like it was constantly spinning and my eyes always wanted to cross. Mm-hmm. And after about 2 weeks, all of a sudden my eyes were straight and I could finish my thoughts.
Wow.
And I was staying awake longer. I didn't need 2-3 naps a day. And I thought, I have no idea why this is working. And I don't even know if it's gluten that's doing it, but let me keep going with this.
Yeah.
And I did the gluten-free, and I think I did dairy-free and soy-free, and eventually tested back the soy and the dairy. And I was like, okay, nothing, no changes. And then I tested back the gluten because I'm Italian. And the worst thing that could ever happen to me was to be told that I can't eat pasta.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I remember my first thought, like when someone said I had to go gluten-free, my first thought was, how will I ever raise my children if I can't get no pastina?
Right.
So about 2 months after I started, I tested back the gluten, and I was so happy. I made myself a bowl of tortellini, and I was sitting out there on the porch watching the kids play, and nothing happened. I finished the bowl of tortellini, and nothing happened. I'm like, oh, thank God it's not the gluten. But then the rest of the day went on. I went to bed, and the next day I didn't wake up. For 18 hours I slept. 18 hours. And I thought, my God. My husband even put a mirror under my nose, thinking, oh my God, wow. He's like, is she still alive? I didn't recover from that. I didn't get back to my normal for about 2 months. And at that point, I didn't know what the hell was wrong with gluten or what it was doing, but I knew I never wanted to do that again.
Wow. Yeah.
And I kept finding more and more things. And then I went through some hell as I started to get better and started walking and going to the store by myself. My then husband left in a way, he left me a Dear Jane letter. I came home from Whole Foods and I was so happy to have taken the kids to the store with me. I made it. I did it. I was so happy. And I walk in and there's a note on the kitchen table. And he said, "I'm so sorry. I can't do this life with you anymore. Good luck raising the children."
Oh my God. That is just, I'm speechless on that, Jeanene. You were.
I was too. There's more.
How old? Yeah. How old were these kids he walked out on?
5 and 8.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there was more in that letter. So the letter went on to say, I've cleaned out the bank account. I'm so sorry, but I needed to furnish my place and you have 3 months left on your leased car. Good luck. I'm really sorry. I wish I would have kept that letter.
Wow. Oh my God. I can't even imagine what's going through your head now. You're like, you're on an upward swing. You're getting your strength back. And then, and your husband walks out on you. That's, oh my God, I can't even imagine that.
It was insane. It was insane. But I knew I could not let that situation take me down. There's a lot of things that went through my head. I was like, oh no, fucker, there's no way. First of all, this is not taking me down. 2, seriously, you left me with no money. That's fine. I'm going to sell everything in this house and all of your really cool tools in the garage. I'm going to be fine. And then 3, I said, there's no way these kids aren't going to have a father. And eventually he was found because I went on help with the state food stamps, and they eventually found him and sued him for child support.
Yeah.
And when they found him, that's when I went to him and I said, listen, I don't know if I'm just going to tell you. I said, listen, your body will be found in the trunk of a car if you are not a father to these children. I don't care what you feel about me, but these kids need a father and you will be their father and we will be friendly and we will make this work and we will co-parent. So help me God if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think that was the Sicilian coming out in me.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you, Jeanene. Good for you.
I said, that's fine. We don't have to be married. You don't have to live this life with me. But by God, you are going to be a father and we are going to be friendly and we will not show the kids any of this. So he looked at me and he went, I can do that. So I said, okay, this is what we're going to do then. And we came up with a plan.
Good.
I was determined. I was going to be a good mother. I was going to have the use of my body and my kids were going to have a father. Those were non-negotiables for me.
Right. So now you're by yourself. I mean, he walked out on you and he's going to co-parent with you, but now you're by yourself and you still have MS. I mean, that didn't change and people, they don't understand that. Okay. Yeah. She went through a divorce. You still have MS. How did you manage raising 2 kids by yourself with MS and you're still trying to get back to where you wanted to be?
And find a job that I could do with MS and 2 kids and no husband. He always worked from home. So, childcare was never a problem. So it wasn't pretty much, I did some waitressing jobs and that took my energy, like that killed me. And then I started working from home when my kids went to school.
Yeah.
But what I think saved me was that I knew that this was something for me to figure out. I had this ability to understand that this was given to me as a lesson. I didn't know what that lesson was, and I felt like there was probably 100 better ways to teach me a lesson, but I knew that this was something that I had to figure out. And what I know now that I didn't know then is the way I hid it from my kids and the way I pretended I was okay. The way I would say to them, okay, no, we're good. Let's do this. You know what? I need help getting back out to the car. So why don't you two, you hold my hands. We're going to ask that nice man over there to take care of our cart. When I would get stuck in the grocery store, my legs just didn't want to fucking move.
Yeah.
I pretended that everything was okay. when we didn't have any money and we couldn't do anything and it was summer vacation and I couldn't take the kids anywhere, I made it appear as if we were on a treasure hunt. And because I couldn't afford, we live 5 minutes from the beach. And because I couldn't afford beach badges or the daily passes, I would have to climb the rocks in order to get on the beach. And so I made it, we're going to climb the rocks. And I pretended that everything was okay. Knowing what I know now and how I teach now, that is one of the ways that you get your body to move. Not that you ignore what's going on, but that you don't fall victim to it.
Yeah.
And you first validate what's going on for you. And you have to reestablish the bond that was broken in childhood. So we could get into that. But before we get into that, what I learned years later was when I started to heal, and I'm like, okay, I got this, we can do this. All of a sudden, Anthony Williams came out with this book and talked about the Epstein-Barr virus. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I would say I was about 75% healed. There was still numbness and tingling. There was still brain fog, but later in the day, like I would make it till about 3:00 in the day, and then I'd be, everything would just shut down. But when he came out with that Epstein-Barr information, I thought, let me give this a try. And within 6 months, I was 100%. Now, at the time, I attributed it to getting rid of the Epstein-Barr virus. What I now know is that it was a combination of everything. The Epstein-Barr virus, understanding what my beliefs were about my capabilities, where I came from in childhood, and how not receiving the type of parenting that I wanted is exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
All of these things that I had put together was the thing that turned it around for me. And when I finally healed 100%, I started reaching out to people and saying, I think I got it. I think this works. And the first person to reach out to me to say, Jeanene, you sound insane. You sound absolutely insane that you could heal MS. But you know what? Let's give it a try. Because before that, I would get kicked out of MS groups. I literally got asked to leave out of a support group that I went to.
Yeah.
And they said, there's no way you could heal. You must be lying, or you never had the diagnosis in the first place. And it was awful.
Jeanene, and this is my 27-year experience, and I'm just as frustrated as you with. I've been kicked out of Facebook groups. Yes. And they're kicking somebody out with 27 years experience with this disease. And all I'm trying to do is motivate and just try to inspire people to keep fighting this disease. Yeah. And I put my podcast up and they're like, oh no, you're self-promoting. I'm like, I'm not promoting myself. I'm just promoting information. It's like ignorance. It's ignorance, even with in the MS community, Facebook and all that. I don't understand. If your way works for you, I want to hear about it. That's a great story. I did an episode with a guy I dropped a couple days ago. He has Parkinson's for 22 years. He lived 11 years on their meds and did it their way. And he was miserable, and he did it his way. And now he's up to 5,500 miles walk for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And
who wouldn't want to hear about that?
Exactly. I mean, if you got it beat, I want to hear how you got it beat. I've done it for 27 years. I want people to hear how I did it for 27 years. So for people not to accept what you're telling them is just ignorance. So I want to continue hearing on I went off on a little tangent there. But yeah, I want to hear more about how you attacked this disease, how you did it.
You didn't go off on a tangent. That was very important, because another lesson that I had to learn in all of that was you can only help the people who want to be helped. You can only share information with the people who are looking for information. So it was very frustrating in the beginning, because once you find a way out of the darkness, all you want to do is scream it from the rooftops and say, oh my God, there's a way out. Look, it's so much better over here. Yeah. And when other people are screaming, no, we're happy where we are, shut up, stop. You just go, what? How? But then you have to realize that we're all on different journeys. Yeah. And if they want to stay where they are, that's their right. More power to you. I'm going to go spend my energy on the people who want to learn, because like you said, it's not one way for everybody. Even though the protocols and the programs that I have, you have to still apply them to your situation in a way that's going to work for you. So the language is going to sound different, because what you need is not going to be the same thing as what somebody else needs, because we all have a completely different experience. Even two people growing up in the same household, they have two completely different experiences of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I learned, that you can't just say, do A, B, and C, and you will heal. What I started with to make this easier, because I'm all about hacking it. You got to hack things to make it easier, because if you told me do something for a year and then you'll start to see progress, I'm like, what? No, like, this is why, like, working out. No, you need to see progress right away to keep going, because willpower only lasts so long. People are motivated by results.
Right.
So the first thing to do is to understand what is happening inside of your body. You can't heal what you can't see. First, understand. So there's a free download on my website. There's a book I put together with all the information to understand that your body was never attacking itself. It was attacking a virus. This is what the virus is called, and this is how you kill it. And by the way, if you think that, well, there's so much damage that's already done, no, it's called plasticity. Your brain will always create a detour to get the signal around the scar. Mm-hmm. Always. Multiple sclerosis is just multiple scars. Sclerosis is the Latin term for scars. That's all that means, is that you have multiple scars, and people think the more scars they have, the worse off they are. But what we're not told is myelin regenerates itself, signals can take a detour, and that everybody has scars on their brain. Every single person in this world has scars on their brain, but not everyone gets an MRI.
Another thing, this is kind of a funny story, but I tell people this all the time. Because a lot of people say, I got 1,000 lesions on my brain. I got, or whatever, 20, 30, however many their MRI shows up. And they ask me how many you have on my brain. I'm like, I have no idea. I asked my neurologist that question one time about 20 years ago. I was in an infusion center getting a Salumedrol treatment, and somebody else with MS said, how many lesions you have? I said, I don't know. He said, my neurologist told me how many I have. So I went to my neurologist and said, how many lesions do I have? He said, what does it matter, Brian? You're up and walking. He says, you're walking, you're doing everything that you can do. He says, what does it matter if you have 1 or 101? He says, you're still doing what you can do. Don't worry about that. That's the last time I ever asked about lesions.
And that's because when you give the brain a target to work towards, it's going to do it no matter what, because your brain is not there to judge you. It's going to say, oh, we're going to be sick. We're going to be in a wheelchair. Okay. When you believe it, it's going to happen. So here we are. We're sitting in the neurologist's office and we're told you have this disease. It's incurable. You're going to end up in a wheelchair. And who are we to disagree with that? We don't have the knowledge or the education and schooling that these doctors do. So of course we believe it. And then we go home and we research the shit out of this, and we find the most terrifying, scary information online to not only back up what that doctor just said, but to terrify us even more. So now we're in a state of fear. We believe the worst, and your brain's going, yep, this is what we're working towards. It's not all about belief, but I think 90% of it is about belief. When you believe you're going to end up in a wheelchair, you're going to end up in a wheelchair no matter what. What about that story? What's her name? She diagnosed with cancer, and she was given 6 months to live. And she died 6 months, almost to the day that the doctor told her that she had 6 months. That's it. She died.
Yeah.
Her autopsy revealed that she never had cancer in the first place. She never had cancer.
Wow.
There are so many stories like that.
Yeah.
We can make ourselves sick and we can make ourselves healthy. Mindset is not the only thing. You also have to address the virus in the body. But even when, here's what I came up with. I was working with all of these clients and teaching them what I did. I called the Starve, Kill, Detox protocol because I'm not very creative. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're starving the virus. We're killing it with our immune system. We're detoxing it out of our body. So SKD is what we call it. I was working with all of these clients and everything would go away. All of the symptoms would go away except the walking. And I didn't understand, like, what is the problem? Like, what did I do? And I went back in time and I'm like, all right, how did I do this? And I started understanding what I did to change the limiting beliefs that I came up with in childhood with. They all stemmed, mine and what I saw the pattern in my clients. They all came down to the root cause of I'm stuck and I have no choices. And if you understood the relationship between the body and the mind, the mind is just playing charades with you. The body is telling you what programs are running in the background. So for someone who can't walk, when I ask them, where in life do you feel stuck? Where do you feel like you have no choices? And if your body was playing charades with you, it didn't have any language, couldn't speak English to you, but it needed to tell you what your subconscious programming was, what would it be? And they say, well, my body's not moving because it feels stuck. And I'd say, do you feel stuck? Yes. And here's where I feel stuck. When we started addressing where and why they felt stuck in their lives, and we took little baby steps towards impressing the shit out of ourselves and taking actions that we were proud of, all of a sudden their body started to move. So I had to hack this and I had to fine tune this. And I wanted this to happen more quickly. And now where I'm at, had a client who said, Jeanene, I'm lucky if I take one shower a week because I don't want to ask my husband to do more than he already does for me. It's exhausting to take a shower. I just don't want to do it. So we did some work around her beliefs, the subconscious ones, root programs. And we talked, it's a weekly thing. So we talked the next week that we talked. She said, Jeanene, I fucking took 4 showers this week. She goes, not only did I take 4 showers this week, but I enjoyed them and I looked forward to them. She goes, and it didn't have anything to do with celery juice. I go, no, it never does.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. You know, and I tried telling people the same message, Jeanene. A lot of my struggles with MS is the mental part of it. If you can manage the mental part of this disease, you can manage this disease for the rest of your life. But that's a hard tool to navigate. You know, the mental part is it's a hard thing to do. It takes a lot of practice. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have a roadblock and you're gonna have to get around that roadblock in a mental way, you know. Yes. Because of physical problems, you're going to have to figure out a way. But it's like, I love to fish. You know, I love going fishing. My wife and I have a place up by Lake Erie, and I'm not going to stop fishing because I have MS. And people ask me, how do you get out on the boat? I figure it out. I mean, I'm going to figure it out. The MS isn't going to stop me. It's mental. It's an attitude you have to have with it. And however you can fight this disease, whether it is with exercise or it's with your diet or it's with taking supplements, do whatever you need to do to fight this disease and keep on fighting and figure it out. Everybody's disease is different. Like you said, we're all going to have to kind of customize our own way of managing this disease and learn all of the different ways that people manage it and customize your way.
And as long as you remain open to, there are ways, I can figure this out, I can heal, if you're willing to do the deep work and really dive into what those subconscious programs are. Like I said, they all come down to, I'm stuck and I have no choices. Or a variation is, I'm unlovable, I'm not worthy. If we can figure out where that got programmed, all we have to do is rewrite that program, because once your conscious mind becomes aware of a subconscious program that is no longer serving it, that it no longer needs, that's when you can release it. But until you are brave enough to go back in time and talk about what childhood was like, what I needed that I never got, not for any other reason than to start reprogramming. We don't want to focus on the trauma, but we just want to identify it and then ask, what did you need that you didn't did not get at that time. And when you uncover that answer, that is exactly what you need today. The whole key to walking, and this is why the walking was always the last symptom to go and took me the longest to figure out, is because when we learn how to parent ourselves the way we needed to be parented when we were a child, when we change our self-talk to that of a loving parent, that's when the body begins to move. And it doesn't matter how long you haven't been able to walk or how long you've been in a wheelchair. The minute, and I'm telling you, it is the minute you identify the self-talk that you needed as a child, and then you give that to yourself, that is the moment the body moves. And it has been proven time and time again, client after client. It's amazing how it doesn't take weeks and months. It takes that one realization. And then when that body moves and your logical mind goes, are you freaking kidding me? That's all it took? How much deeper can I go? Where else can we visit? And that's the momentum. It's not willpower. It's just the willingness to go into some of those rooms in our minds where we have closed the door and thrown away the key. If we're willing to unlock that door and look into it, we find that, one, it's not as scary as we thought it was, and two, it is the answer to getting our bodies to move again.
I love it. I love it. So if somebody is interested that is listening to us, where can they find you website wise, just to look up and just get more information about your program and all that? Because I just think it's fascinating, and it's a new tool.
Fascinating. I still find it fascinating with every single person I work with. Some of these conversations are just life-changing just in the 60 minutes that we're on the call. And sorry, to answer your question, yeah, I have a website and there is a button for a discovery call. You click that, book a call with me. You can read all about the Epstein-Barr virus and understand what's going on in your body. That's a free download. Download that, read about it, and then book a call with me and let's just have a conversation. Let's just see what's going on and let me hear your story.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a tool. It's a tool, and we're all searching for tools to fight this disease. And if this is another thing that can help us to live a better life, I am 100,000% behind it. It's another tool. Like I said, I really
tool in the toolbox. We just keep adding to our resources. Yep.
Yeah, I used to tell my kids. My wife used to tell my stepdaughter that all the time. You know, when she was young, she's on the autism spectrum, and she used to give her tools and put in her toolbox. And she told her when she went to college, you have a toolbox. You got all the tools. You got to use them. And this is just another tool that I think you can use to help fight this disease. And I really appreciate you just coming on here. And I would love to have you on again, because I just think you're just full of so much awesome information.
Oh, thanks. I would love to come on again. There's so much that we could talk about. There's so many little things that we could branch off. And I love talking to you. You're a real person. And that's what I appreciate, the realness. There's no script. There's no agenda. Let's just shoot the shit and see where the conversation goes.
That's what it is. Everybody I record with, I'm just like, hey, we're just two MSers, like we're having a beer in a bar, talking shit and but this is awareness. I'm learning. I tell people I've had this stupid disease for 27 years, and I've been doing this podcast for about 3 months, and I've learned so much. I've had it for 27 years, and I'm still learning about this disease because I've been shut. It's my disease, my circle for 26 out of the 27 years. And now I've opened that circle up and I'm learning so much more. And that's my whole point of this podcast is just, you can learn just by listening. It's easy. It is so easy just to learn about Parkinson's, to learn about POTS disease, to learn about, I'm trying to think of, I've had a lady that had a stroke on, to learn what it's like battling these different things that people battle every day, but people just don't understand it. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I appreciate you for helping me to do that.
No, thank you. Everyone's fighting their own battle that we don't often see because we're not given the opportunity to peek inside their homes and see what their real life is like. And when we do these podcasts and we listen to the podcast, it's like getting a glimpse inside of their life. And it helps us to understand when we come across people in life, like, don't judge. We have no idea what that person is going through or has been through.
Right.
And so I very much appreciate your effort to just raise awareness that we're all different. We all have different needs, and you take what you can get and you pass on. You learn and you pass on.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If you want to check out Jeanene's website, I will put it in the description. Give you her link. You can click on it and check it out. If you want to follow me on Instagram, MSMichiganMan64, I'm on TikTok too, MSMichiganMan64, and you could find me on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Until the next podcast, and again, thank you, Jeanene. Until the next podcast, this is Michigan Man, Brian, I am out.